Welcome back to the Restaurant Technology Guys podcast. Thank you guys out there for joining. And as I say every single time, and it gets a little bit rote, but I know it's true, is you guys have lots of choices. So we appreciate you guys spending an hour with us each and every week when we come on the air waves and share some good restaurant technology news. Today is no different. Today we are joined by one of the co-founders of ClearCogs. I'm going to let Osa introduce himself first, and then we'll talk a little bit about ClearCogs, and then we'll talk a little bit about what they do. For those longtime listeners may have heard his co-founder on the show a few months back. But Osa, why don't you introduce yourself to our listeners? Who are you? Where did you come from? And kind of how did you get into this crazy world of restaurant technology and trying to solve some problems? And then we'll talk about what ClearCogs is doing.
Happy to be here, Jeremy. So I'm Osa Yanmo Osarenkoi.
Yeah, I wasn't going to go there. Like we said pre-show, man, I wasn't going to jack it up and screw up your name. Sorry about that.
No worries. So we're all friends here, so you can call me Osa. I'm one of the co-founders of ClearCogs. I'm the chief product officer. So day to day, it's trying to figure out exactly how to build a product that really does improve the lives of our customers, the restaurant operators. The story of how I got here. So my background is all technical. Right, from undergrad, grad school, Silicon Valley, then came to Chicago, where I live now. Started my first company almost a decade ago. Did okay, done a couple of ventures between then and now, but it's through my co-founder, right, Matthew. So he has the restaurant background, and we started noodling around with a couple different ideas, and one of them just stuck, because something I've noticed coming from the technology space into the restaurant space is, for one, I know nothing, right? And I'm so happy about that, because it's very humbling and pretty great that I get to walk into most conversations with people who have so much experience like you, Jeremy, and just say, look, I know a few things now after doing this for 2 years, but I know that there's so much more that I don't know. So this is educational for me. But also realizing that the technology in this industry is so far behind a lot of the things that I'm accustomed to.
Yes.
So there's a lot of green space there to kind of build things that truly help improve the lives of operators. And that's kind of the thesis that we build every day with.
I love it. I love it. And so how did you and Matt meet? Before for those that didn't listen, because I know Matt talked about it on his last show with me, but it's always a fun story. And I know that our listeners will tell me when I see them at shows and stuff, they love hearing kind of the backstory of where people came from. And how does a tech guy from Silicon Valley move to Chicago, get into writing restaurant technology software? And we'll talk about what ClearCogs is doing to solve restaurant problems. But how did you and Matt meet? Were you just drinking buddies, or, for our listeners that may not know?
Yeah, but it's always funny, right? Like, I think Matt and I always describe this journey a little bit differently. So I will go back and re-listen to how he put it. But basically, I was working on my first company, and I got this like stark wake-up call that there's a massive difference between building software, building a product, and even a greater difference between building a business.
Oh, yes.
Right, exactly.
Very, very different.
And funny enough, as a side note, I kind of, that learning of like, oh, you can do the thing you want to do, the core of what should be the business. But then there's a whole business you have to build wrapped around what you want to do. Yep. It's a thesis that I kind of hold now. It's like looking at different industries. Take the restaurant industry, for example. Many people get into it because of the restaurant itself.
Yes.
Right? Like the cooking, the serving of the food. Like there's so many aspects that are core functions of the restaurant. And then you have all of the other things that make it a business.
Yeah, ordering. Nobody goes into the restaurant business to go order food from their broadliners. Nobody goes into the restaurant business to talk to the guy to clean the hoods and make sure that you don't have a fire. But it's part of the business side of things that people have to do.
Absolutely, right. And it's looking for, and I think finding industries like that and trying to build technology to help take away the things that people don't want to do, to give them more time to do the things that they do. I think it's like a really strong future that we see coming, especially now with the rise of AI and everyone is worried. I really look at it and I say, and we can go down that rabbit hole later, but I really look at it as something that can take away the stuff you don't want to do, so you spend more time doing the things you do.
And the stuff that you're good at. The stuff you're passionate about, the stuff that gives you life, not takes away life.
Yeah, like, and learn the things that you're not good at, but you enjoy, right? Like maybe you get more time to like apply to these different areas. Well, Matt and I, so we met during this whole discovery phase for me, where I had, come to realize like, oh, okay, well, I built a good software, but it's not a great product, and there's no business at all. And we met through the internet, like a couple of young kids, and one of the, I was just incredibly impressed with them. Like I told him this before, I took a bunch of workshops and classes trying to learn how to do things like build a financial model, or what are unit economics, or how to really put a business plan in place. I remember I had maybe 2 conversations with Matt, and then the third conversation, he showed up with this Excel with all my unit economics broken down, projections, a plan. I was like, I've been struggling to do that for what, 4 months, and you did it in like just because he was like, this is how I think, and then I was like, oh,
love that.
Yeah, I was like, this guy's really cool. But it shows you a couple of things, right? Like, A, the intelligence, B, the willingness to help, right? And not just, it wasn't superficial, it wasn't transactional. He just said, I think this will be helpful for you. This is I can do this, so let me do it for you.
Yep.
And yeah, we just became friends from there. He was very influential in helping me take the business to the point where I was able to sell it. And then we stayed in touch after that. And we worked on a couple of side projects here and there. But at the beginning of 21, I remember he called and was like, oh, hey, I'm going to get some data from some restaurants that I know. Let me know if you have some time tomorrow. I was like, oh, okay, I'll move a few things around in my schedule. And I get on the call, and they're like giving us all this technical information. And Matt is, he likes to say that he knows enough to be dangerous. And it's true, right? Like, so he's asking the right questions, and he's getting all this information. But, they already gave us like the key piece. So I was already like, oh, well, I'm over here just like writing a script to pull down the data. And I think it was either by the end of the call or the next day, I was like, yeah, I've already pulled down 10 years of restaurant data using the keys they gave us. And it's like, oh, that was way easier than I thought.
Yeah, it's the opposite of what he did for you on the business planning side. You did for him on the technical side, which is part of what I love about your guys' partnership.
Oh yeah, I've never actually thought about it that way. Yeah.
Yeah, you think about it. His business model that he built for you in a week, just to give you as a let me help you. He could have spent the next 5 years trying to pull down the data and build the business model that you did on the technical side. And so I love that. It's part of what I love about you guys. And Matt is, for any of the guys that do know Matt, he's got more energy than most, and he's never met an idea he doesn't like. So he's always full of ideas, and he's always like out chasing really cool stuff. So talk to me about what ClearCogs is trying to solve for, because I think that to me is obviously the crux of our conversation. And I think we're going to weave our way through quite a bit, but it's been interesting, again, watching you guys' journey over the last couple of years, because as you and I talked about pre-show, this is not something that's a one-for-one replacement. It's kind of a new idea that most people don't have in their restaurant brand. So talk to me a little bit about kind of where you guys are at and what you guys are trying to solve for from the technical side and all that data that Matt gave you access to.
Yeah. So fundamentally, what we're trying to do is, support restaurant operators to be more efficient, right? To use their time more wisely, to use their resources more wisely. I think, as Matt likes to put it, to be better stewards of resources, which you measure through profitability. Right? How we help restaurants be more profitable using data-driven solutions.
Yep.
Whatever that looks like. And yeah, like you're right, it's not replacing anything. It's the AI co-pilot for your restaurant. Like, it's this tool that you can configure, you can use in any way that fits your needs and your communication style and your management style to just upgrade your game. On the technical side, yeah, so one of the early things that I learned walking into this industry is just how chaotic it is. Right? One of the things that Matt makes everyone do joining the company is watch the TV show The Bear. And I
Okay.
apologize if I already told this story, but we make everyone watch that TV show there. It's on FX, filmed here in Chicago. And we do that because it gives you a somewhat decent sense, a good sense of what it's like to actually, operate in a restaurant day to day. Matt said it gave him PTSD, so he couldn't walk past the second episode.
That's hilarious.
Yeah, but it's like it it builds so much empathy for the customer.
Uh-huh.
That's something else that I learned early on in my journey as an entrepreneur. There's a mentor that I have from Math Ventures, Mark Ackler. I remember he would always take my calls. Like I would show up every month or so, and I was this young entrepreneur, knew nothing, and he's like this seasoned veteran that's like revered in Chicago, and he always had the same feedback though. It's like, look, the next time you come in, you need to go build empathy for your customer. The next time you come in, I want you to be speaking to me from their point of view.
Oh, wow.
Say, why do you do this? I don't want you to say, well, I think that. Say, well, this is how my customers are. This is who they are. And educate me on your customers, because now you have so much empathy for them.
Yeah, well, dig into that, Osa, a little bit, because you talked at a general level about what ClearCogs is trying to do, create some efficiency. You talked about kind of your passion to help people, and Matt's passion to help people to do more of what they want to do.
Yeah.
How are you guys doing that? And like, where, restaurants are miniature manufacturing plants with humans and food coming in and food going out, and you got customers, and you got customers coming in from third party. They're all over the place, so it is chaotic. There's a lot going on. People that don't watch this show, that haven't worked in restaurants, we hire technical people all the time, and it's like, you have no idea what it looks like to have an expo printer go down on a Friday night, or what it looks like to have a line of guests and then your POS goes down, or your kitchen management goes out. Just across the board, there's a lot of things that are happening. You've got a very finite window of time. Time is the only resource that's non-renewable, that we can't figure out how to get our arms around as human beings. So talk to me a little bit about where are you guys pressing on the pain? What is the pain that you guys are solving primarily, I guess, at the onset, that people didn't have?
Yeah, so that's a really good question. So the path I was going down was to explain how we've made it incredibly simple. We're pulling the data from your POS. It takes about 10 seconds to sign up, and another hour at some point to fine tune it for your specific needs. But really, when we talk about the pain points, it also goes into a little bit of what I've been doing for the last week, which is trying to recreate that pain, right, in conversation, so people really understand the value proposition.
Yep.
So to be pointing with the answer, right now, and again, like this is what the situation where I walked in and I said, there's so much that I don't know. You've already mentioned a few pain points, right, in everyday operations that I hadn't even considered, right? But we're starting with one pain point in particular, and that's surrounding prep. So the thing is, for the restaurant operators who are listening, they're going to think, oh, well, prep isn't a pain point. I'm going on prep, and that's how that conversation always starts. But the reality is, when you really think about how your prep goes, when you think about the minutia of like trying to figure out how much you need every day, and the problems that are caused by not knowing how many people are going to walk in.
Yep.
Like it's something where in a 5-minute conversation with any operator, you can get them to say those words verbatim. Well, there's no way that we can know how many people are going to walk in. So yes, we do our best, and we put these systems in place where if we're running low, then someone leaves the line to go in the back to go slice more meats. And it's a pain, it's annoying, it's really annoying to do it mid-shift. And the customer experience gets a little downgraded because we misprojected, or we just run out entirely, or at the end of the day, we never throw out things. We just kind of put them in the freezer for a couple of days, and then they take them away. And it's like, there's all of these like systems that have been put, or and it's something that I love about the restaurant industry too. There's so much of an entrepreneurial spirit that goes into wanting to run a restaurant. Right? Like every day is chaotic, it's different, it's ADHD. Right?
Yeah. Well, and it's funny that you talk about that, because the story that you and I even talked about pre-show, and I know it came up with my last conversation I had with Matt, is most people have some level of a system.
Mhm.
but it's very like tribal. Like it's not this system that says we're doing it because of this.
Yeah.
Just on Tuesdays, I mean, my first job, I was making sandwiches, not at Jimmy John's, but I was making sandwiches at a place, and it was the same exact story because we had the meat that was prepared and it was sliced that morning. The tomatoes were sliced that morning. The avocados were sliced that morning, but you never knew how much you needed to make. And there was a prep chart that you had, but to your point, it was very tribal. There was nothing about it that was data other than, oh, we should probably not have sliced so much roast beef because we didn't sell enough of it today. I'm going to tell you a quick funny story that I was just last week at a and every restaurant wishes they had this problem, but I was at a restaurant. I was at a barbecue restaurant this last week with my family, and the restaurant opens at 11 and closes when they sell out. So
Mhm.
they prep as much as their smokers will make. And
Yeah.
by 1:15, they close their doors. So in
Wow.
2 hours and 15 minutes. And
Yeah.
so they probably don't have the problem because they don't want to, they want to be open for 2.5 hours a day. And they're good to close by 2 o'clock. They're open 4 days a week, and they're open 4 days a week. But 99.999% of the restaurants have this challenge. And so much of it's tribal. Talk to me a little bit about the data elements and why you guys on the product side are able to capture stuff that people inherently knew in their head
Yeah.
and were not right. Some of them were right, some of them were wrong. But talk to me about the use of data and why data is so important and what you're able to do with that data to help people be more efficient and do, to your point, what they couldn't do otherwise without it.
Yeah, no, absolutely. It's one of those things where growing up in tech, I always heard that data is gold. Data is
Mm-hmm.
next gold, it's next oil. And I never understood it. I like ask me 5 years ago and I would have pretended like I knew what they were talking about, but I
That's
never
funny
really
because
understood.
that is a very common misnomer.
Yeah.
And I've been trying to change it. And sorry, I don't mean to cut you off, but I've been trying to change it to say actionable data or directional data is more important than data, because I do think too many people are collecting too much data and they're not doing anything with it. So actionable data and or directional data is where I'm trying to steer my own team to even say is just data for data's sake does nothing, but data that creates better activities is what you're looking for. So I'll let you keep going on that front.
Yeah, no, absolutely, right. Like it's one of the things is we ended up we use AI in a dual purpose terms, right? There is AI at the core of what we do, but I love the term actionable intelligence, right? Like that's our goal, to provide actionable intelligence. But what we do is we're taking a good way of putting it. So when I walk into a restaurant and I say, so what is your system for figuring out how much you need? The most common answer that we hear is, well, we look at what we sold yesterday.
Uh-huh.
Then we look at what we sold today last year. And then we're able to kind of have a feel for what our growth rates year over year has been. And that helps us make an educated guess. And I'm like, that's incredible. Oh, you also like look at the weather or maybe look at traffic on your way in this morning. And I'm like, that's great. That's a really good system for a human. But the computers are just, that's all they do.
Mm-hmm.
What we do is we take your sales yesterday, your sales today, last week, tomorrow, last week, yesterday, last week, last month, last year. We're taking for every single number that we give you. So when we say this is how much roast beef to slice, just to come out with that one number, the system looks at about 100 variables,
Wow.
picks the top five, uses those to do a calculation based on your short-term trends, long-term trends, weather patterns, like all of these things. Is it an election year, right?
Uh-huh.
Looking at all of these things that just would be inundating for a human to do. Like you could do it, right? Like if you dedicated 4 hours a day to Excel, then you could do exactly what our system does. But why would you? That's just a waste of time. So
Yep.
rather we built this system that takes all of that historic data from your POS with a really simple integration, is able to predict the future, but it doesn't stop there. Again, this is where that like actionable piece comes in. So the 1 hour of setup that we ask of our clients is really to help fine tune exactly what they're receiving and how. Right? We like to keep it simple. You're getting an email every day that tells you this is the answers to all of your questions. This is all the information you need. Right?
Yeah.
Like you don't. No one wants to log into another dashboard or download another app or open up. Like no, I'm just going to email you the cheat sheets every single morning, right? You get to print it out, hand it to whoever you want, or assign it to whoever you want, and they get the emails. But we convert it into terms that make the most sense. You don't slice roast beef in ounces. I mean, maybe you put strips into your sandwiches, so you know it's 3 strips each. But when you're slicing in pounds.
Yep.
How long are you slicing for? Like what? So there's all of these other variables that go into making it something that's useful, that's instantly useful for the operators. Because again, going back to that piece about the empathy, there's already so much chaos going on in every restaurant.
Oh,
I
yeah.
like to say, let's deliver them these insights in a way where their time on our platforms, their time with our services is nearly zero. See the number is 47. Now go do your thing. You don't need to talk to us. Just you're done.
Yeah.
That's answered your question. And now you get to buy back time, save on waste, prevent stockouts, improve customer experience. All of these benefits that come from, again, just having that co-pilot with you as you make these decisions.
I wrote down 4 or 5 questions from that, so I'm gonna try and keep us on track here. But the first of which, and the oftentimes the argument that I hear from people is okay, but you don't know my business.
Yes.
But you don't know my business. You live in Chicago. Next week, when we're recording this, next week is the NRA show. There'll be 50,000 extra people in Chicago that weren't there this week potentially, unless there was a different show, the auto show or whatever. But things like that. Construction outside changes. Graduation got moved because of a snowstorm. These things happen that computers can't. And clearly I'm setting you up for something that you already know the answer to, because I can see the smile on your face. But talk to me about how you guys are normalizing those non-standard events that are happening in and around the NRA show. Chicago happens typically that time of year every year, but sometimes it moves. COVID obviously changed a whole bunch of these things over the last couple of years. And so some of the traffic patterns have changed, some of the people driving to and from work. Where are you guys getting some of that data? Because based on the look on your face, I'm assuming you guys are doing something to capture outside activities that don't really deal with that.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And and that's why they pay us the big bucks, right? So we spend what, like 90%. So far, we've spent 90% of our efforts on answering that exact question. The question that you're trying to ask, right? Which is, well, how does it know? Right? Like, how does it really know? You can't really know. There's so many things that matter. And it's like, yeah, but again, that's why there's 100 of those variables and not just the 7 I mentioned.
Yeah, that you can internalize in your own head, because unfortunately we think that we can do that, but we can't.
Yeah, right. Like, so the show this year is on. Well, I guess it's okay. So technically, the NRA show is always Saturday, Sunday, Monday, Tuesday.
Yep.
But assuming it moved around the it factors all of these things into it, and we're able to understand that. Oh well, the restaurants are, and again, it's per units, right? So every single location gets its own custom model built every single night at 1 a.m.
based on the traffic for that store, based on that geography, based on the weather that's there. The store that's 6 blocks away doesn't have that same deal. It's funny that you talk about the data. We built a machine learning data model related to kitchen prep time. So think about this model, and maybe you guys are already working on it as well. Right now, when I go into a kitchen, certain things take 8 minutes to cook. Other things take 12 minutes to cook. And depending upon the velocity of the kitchen and the specific station within the kitchen, that cook and that shift and that person. So we built a model to predict within 60 seconds when food would come out of the kitchen based on the basket of what people ordered. Kind of a cool solution. A lot of times when you go on DoorDash or Uber Eats or whatever your third-party delivery, method of choice is, when you see that it's 45 minutes or an hour, you might not order. But depending upon your basket, we have a model that will allow people to get a prediction back that says, no, Osa's meal, because of his basket, is only going to take 14 minutes to prepare instead of 30 minutes, because it's a pretty straightforward logarithm based on how those things work. And we built the model and sent it to this client. We had taken some of their data, and they're like, there's no way this is possible. There's no way this is possible. Okay, this is what the model says. We send it to them again. No, there's no way this is possible. Come to find out, the quality of the data was bad. They had They had given us data that had taken off the longest and the shortest. And so it was the wrong data and it had screwed it up. But it's funny because now we went to prove it to them. We went to a single store and showed them with this basket. This is what it would have, this is what the model would have said. And this is what it actually happened at 12:30 on a Saturday. So, it's amazing when you can take in all of these pieces. I asked our CTO recently, why do you think there's such a proliferation of tools that can internalize these things? 10 years ago, I don't feel like some of this stuff would have been possible, because whether it's the compute power or the set of tools that we had accessible to us 10 years ago, it would have taken somebody, that machine learning model, which we built in 90 days, would have taken us probably 3 years to build, based on, because we'd have had to write all of that. Talk to me a little bit about how the acceleration of that is allowing you guys at ClearCogs to deliver better solutions faster to these people.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And in terms of the trust in our system, I'll just kind of touch on that for a second. I like to say that, or we like to say that, it takes about a month. The first week, they don't even look at it. And at the end of the week, they look back and say, oh, those were actually not bad. And then the second week, they look at it every day and go, wow, that's really accurate. And by the third week, they start dabbling with it. And then by the fourth, they're addicted. It's like, well, yeah, it's correct. I now know that it is correct. But yeah, technology, I mean, you have to, I always love to say that we're standing on the shoulder of giants. Right? Mm-hmm. We've not invented any new wheels, right? Like, we're not responsible for the core technology. That, again, the machine learning models, right? That's something that's relatively new. Yep. And the thing is, it appears like AI is in our daily lives just so much, even when we don't see it. Something as simple as when you take a picture with any of the new iPhones, I think from like 12 and up. It was funny, like the other day, someone took a picture of me and then showed it to me and said, oh no, it's not done yet. It's like, what do you mean it's not done? It's like, yeah, it's still processing, it's still removing the blemishes, making the edges sharper, but that's all AI. Mm-hmm. But now that's, since technology started moving in the direction of AI, and it's been doing that for a while, right? Because there's so many of these underlying algorithms that help us from watching YouTube videos more efficiently, whatever that means, to taking better pictures. But it kind of works in lockstep between the software and the hardware. So to keep it simple, basically a non-optimized computer can't actually do a lot of what it is that we do today.
Yep.
In terms of that AI, as easily as it can. So I don't know if that, I apologize if I'm.
No, you're fine. You're fine. Well, and I just think it's one of those things that I love, that you and so many of your other contemporaries are pushing the limits of what we thought wasn't possible, because the data exists, which I want to talk a little bit about the data and how you guys are getting to it. You talked about your 10-minute integration of point of sale. We all know that a number 8 sandwich at Jimmy John's, is whatever the number 8 is. But the number 8 doesn't necessarily mean that the data and how much roast beef I have to prep for the number 8 is the same. Talk to me a little bit about how you guys built that bridge, because I think that's important for our listeners to understand. That says, you're integrating to POS, but POS is only going to tell you I sold 40 number 8s on wheat and 30 number 8s on, white bread, or whatever. And 6 of them in a lettuce wrap. Because people don't like to live their lives and they like to go carb free or whatever. But why are you having a sandwich if you're going to have it on lettuce? But that's called a salad to me. But that's a different topic for a different conversation. So talk to me a little bit about how are you guys translating that? Because that is important. That's an important factor to know how much roast beef I need to make versus how many am I going to sell at lunch on a Tuesday?
Yeah, no. I'll say they should try out the platform, and then they'll
we should get them to buy something. I mean, part of what we're trying to do, but again, I think that this is part of the bridge that you guys are doing, that people, they do it because they've been doing it and because the person before them taught them, but you guys are doing it so much more efficiently. And I want you to talk through what you guys have done to help people with that.
Yeah, no, and again, it's something where, it goes back to a lot of the core concepts of this conversation. It's that empathy for the client. Something else that you mentioned that I don't know if I brought up, but we do not know your operations as well as you do. Mm-hmm. It's like the operator, no matter how much time. If once you've been there a couple of months, then you know your systems better than we do, right? So
Yep.
we're not really coming in to try to replace people. We're not really coming in to try to replace what you do. It's help increase your guts, right? Like help give you better guideposts. For example, one of our most recent clients, he was telling me about how much salmon they sell. And he said, oh, it's very consistent. It's between 50 and 20, 15 and 20. I said, oh, well, that's a really thin window. He said, yeah, it's between 15 and 20 whole fillets. Like, oh, well, each fillet is actually 14 pieces, right? So all of a sudden, that five is not five, it's 70.
Yep.
A band of 70. But, oh, well, yeah, our system is just going to help shrink that goalpost. So you don't wake up every day and say, well, I'm going to sell somewhere between, 15 and 20 whole pieces, which translates to this massive window. Instead, we'll say, yeah, today you're going to sell today is a 17 to 18 type of day, right?
I love it.
Now you still have to make that decision, but now we've tightened these windows so much and just helping nudge you in the right direction. So even though traffic was light and yesterday you sold a bunch, you don't show up and say, oh, well, I think today we're going to sell 20 because yesterday we ran out. It's like, no, maybe you're not really considering the fact that today's Valentine's Day and no one eats fish. Like that's a thing that it makes perfect sense when you say it out loud, but I had never thought about it before.
Yeah.
Right?
Well, and I think in that, a lot of times, the other part that I guess I will remind people is it requires that person to know that I sell between 15 and 20, and which
Yeah.
means he can't take a vacation
Yeah.
or he can't leave because it's reliant on this person. You know, when you watch these high-end chef shows, they know how many meals they're going to have, but it's reliant on a human being to be there 100% of the time to
Yeah.
do that. Or you trust your staff to do it,
Yeah.
and then you find that 4 or 5 fillets, which are not cheap, of
Yeah.
salmon now got wasted, and you can't serve them the next day because it's not going to meet your quality standards.
Yeah, I recently was at a restaurant and I was talking to the GM, and she said, "Oh, well, this restaurant we won't like this location. We're not going to use your software because our owner comes to this location every single day religiously. He handles prep. He wouldn't even let me, the GM, touch it, and he loves doing it for this location. But here's his email and phone number. You should definitely talk to him because the other 4 locations are all crap when
Yeah.
it comes to
Uh-huh.
prepping, like knowing how much to prep there. So yes, if you have that one person who just has always done it, has that gut feel, then they're going to be good enough to where, okay, we're not saving you $1,000 a month anymore. We would only save you a few hundred. Yeah, okay, well, whatever. Like our system will still be better, but I understand you love what you do. That's one of the things that gives you joy. Then we're not going to stop you from doing
Yeah.
that.
Yep.
But if that's not the case, if you have a different location where the managers are not as dialed in as you are, if they're not coming in every day, if that's not the only thing that they're passionate about, then this system is just so necessary.
Yeah.
Right? It's trying to figure out how to one of the things I said, so I spent last week, doing some door-to-door sales more for the learnings. I like to try to understand because I know how to present it, but we've never really formally written it down. Right? It's like train new people to be able to present this. So one of the things that we're working on is trying to figure out how to quickly convey these messages.
Yeah.
Or the message of what we do. And I found that, you walk in and, oh, my prep is fine. I need no help with prep. And then again, it's just helping them re-feel that pain of, well, how did you come up with these numbers? Well, what happens when you get it wrong? Because you do get it wrong sometimes. Like, how painful is that? Well, how annoying is it to try to make up for it? Like, it's helping them re-feel that pain, right? So that they see that, oh, well, if there was a system that just did it for you and is truly as accurate as we know it is, what does that do to you? How does that help you?
Yeah, well, and it reminds me back. I did some work earlier in my career at stadiums, and the amount of waste. And so, I'd love for you guys to talk about how you guys are solving waste because there's the prep side of it, which is making sure that you have the right product. But then there's over prepping. And what does over prepping do for your storage space? What does over prepping do for your inventory? What does over prepping do for your food costs? And what is over prep ultimately at the end of the day, having a whole bunch of stuff going to the landfill? and not going out into the world because you weren't able to sell it that day do for profitability of a restaurant? We all know that restaurants operate at single digit margins
Yeah.
on the whole. Obviously, there's some that operate higher than that. But for every point of food cost you lose, it's a point against profitability that it's going to prevent you from growing. It's going to prevent you from going to your kid's soccer game or buying that new Mercedes that you want or whatever it might be. So talk to me a little bit about how you guys are tackling waste through this, because there's the guy that has it all figured out and he doesn't have the product when the customer want it. Back to my barbecue example from earlier, I got there and I couldn't get the pulled pork that I wanted because they had already sold out of it by like 3 people ahead of me in line. So there's that. And then there's the flip side of it, which is the food that's sitting and ends up getting thrown away or ends up, not being able to be used because of that. So talk to me a little bit about how you guys are tackling that piece as well.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And it's such a straightforward solution, right? Because again, it's not going to be a magic bullet. It's not going to be a cure all. But we look at, for those who keep track, your theoreticals versus your actuals, right? And really, we're saying by just having a better number every day for a few key ingredients, especially, you can shrink that gap, right? And that's less COGS, right? Like just lower your COGS by shrinking that theoretical versus actual, helping make more food walk out the front door than back out the back in the trash cans. But we also see, like, I mean, you've kind of alluded to it a bit here, but I'll give you a story of one of our customers. We went in and they were using, it's a coffee place, it's a breakfast place. It's a high volume breakfast place. And they were using our system primarily for their breads, their baked goods.
Okay. Makes sense.
They order every day, they come the next day. They don't throw them out, they put them in the freezer in case they need them, but they never do. And then when I showed up in person, he was so excited to see me. He said, "Oh my gosh, like, thank you so much. Your system is amazing." It's like, "Oh, well, how amazing? Like, what difference has this made to your waste?" And he said, "Well, I'm no longer filling up my freezer
with bread that I didn't use from today."
Yeah. And that was the indicator. But then one other interesting interaction we had, he also said, "I'd love to get how much milks I'm going to use for the next week. And these are shelf stable, oat milks, almond milks." I was like, "Well, that's not going to go to waste. Why do you need to know that?" He said, "Well, we're a high volume location. Knowing how much exactly we're going to use for the next week is the difference between me needing to stock $40,000 worth of produce on my shelves and $10,000 worth of milk on my shelf."
Which is
And that's
$30,000 worth of cash.
And we're opening a new location.
Because of it.
To go make it, big splash in a grand opening so that location is successful. And
I love it.
Again, yes, the waste component is something that we started, right, with that in mind.
Yep.
Our goal was to try to be impactful. And again, a lot of our employees, so we know that it's a touchy subject with restaurants, so we don't always lean into the sustainability aspect. But all of our employees internally are bought into that mission. Like, that's why we do this. It's 2 reasons, really. Sustainability, right? Like reducing food waste, but also let's help the restaurant stay in business. These razor thin margins, and again, that's something that just blows my mind. I mean, yes, I'm coming from software where the margins are.
Where margins are stupid, sometimes over 100% on software.
Right.
Yeah.
But still, it's, trying to help these individual operators, especially the people who have to, you're putting your blood, sweat, and tears into this thing. What little boosts can we give you? And we pay close attention to that, especially as we do more product development, kind of bringing it back to the technology of it. But it's before we release a product, it's really understanding that this is something that helps. This is something that improves your life and brings joy to our customers.
I love it. Where's it going, Osa? Tell me, where are you guys going? I know that this is a booby trap waiting to happen because Matt's going to hear this, and Matt's going to have already sold it before you even finish and this gets live. But where's it going? I know you guys were playing around with some AI stuff. You guys were playing around with the chatbot to help with some things. But talk to me about, kind of, you guys are new. You guys are a couple years old. You guys have a huge ceiling and a lot of things that you guys are solving for people. But where would you love to see the product going?
Okay. Okay, so this is where I give you the secret sauce to our success. Right? But I do think it's something that's more people should adopt. So where the product is going, I am the chief product officer. My entire job is to know exactly where the product is going. And let me tell you, I have no idea.
I
Right?
love
I
it.
have no idea.
And why
Because
is that? Why is that? I'm guessing, and I'm hopeful that you're going to come back and say you were a door-to-door salesperson last week because you want to know where the product needs to go, and you're
exactly,
listening to the voice of the customer.
yeah, everything that we've done so far has been because restaurant operators said that's what they need. And it's taking consensus and really stripping it down to the bare bones of what actually drives value. What's the job that you're hiring our software to do? And I mean, you nailed it on the head. I don't know, because at the end of the day, our customers are always going to be the ones who dictate what we build, not the other way around. I'm not building software for this. Again, first learning of there's a difference between software, product, and business.
Yes.
Understanding that you first tackle the middle piece of figuring out what the product should be by talking to your customers before you start building the software.
Yep.
Yeah, we've always had that as one of the core ethos of how we develop things, and I hope that we never change.
I love it. I love it. How do people get in touch with you, with your team? How do they learn more about what it is that you guys are doing? Because I mean, I say it often, and I know our longtime listeners know that I have people on the show that I truly believe are solving restaurant problems. I get the privilege to talk to some really, really cool people, and I love that you guys are doing that. And I want everybody that's out there listening to this to learn more about what you guys are doing as a team, and how do they learn more about the product and and get involved.
Yeah, no, absolutely. Yeah, there's one thing that we're never tired of is talking to people in the restaurant space, right? Operators and otherwise, right? To learn more about what we should be doing, tell them more about what we are doing. You can always reach us. I'm OSA at ClearCogs.com. You can also reach my co-founder, Matt, M-A-T-T, at ClearCogs.com. You can look us up online. Our website is pretty fantastic. Shout out to our marketing team. And also our LinkedIn. We're really, really active on LinkedIn. So please give us a follow if you don't already, right? It's a great way to keep track of what we're doing. We try to keep it light and positive on the socials.
I'm saying, and both he and his co-founder are very, very active. I see them on, either commenting on different people or they're posting constantly, and they're chatting back and forth. So LinkedIn is the way that I catch up with these guys most often. But they do have a pretty fantastic website, and they do a lot to solve people's problems. To our listeners, guys, we know that you guys have lots of choices. A couple more avenues to get content if you have the desire. We are now posting live on LinkedIn every time we finish one of these videos. So if you haven't already liked Restaurant Technology Guys on LinkedIn, and we also relaunched the YouTube channel, and so we're posting the videos on YouTube if that's your consumption method of choice. Osa, thank you so much for talking about your guys' story, for helping restaurants and continuing to do what you guys do. And to our listeners, make it a great day.